I'll be going to the apiary.
You also get interesting incidents from time to time. A couple of 3 months ago, we had a very interesting incident in Haverfordwest, where I had a call because there were a lot of bees. There was a swarm of bees on the back of somebody's car in the centre of town. And one of our beekeepers had already been there and tried to catch the swarm in a swarm box. But unfortunately he had to leave because he had a prior engagement, and so he had to leave with the intention of coming back later. Unfortunately, the wind caught the swarm box and the whole lot went over. All the bees came out again. And subsequently ended up back on the back of the car. So I had a phone call from our chairman who told me that there were a lot of bees in Haverfordwest. He was abroad at the time. He said he'd had a phone call, so he rang me up. So I hightailed it into town. Lo and behold, there were all these thousands of bees, all these people milling around. Some, I have to say, rather inappropriately dressed for beekeepers. Some of them wearing shorts, which I didn't think was a very clever idea. And I said to them, I don't think you'd better be around a swarm of bees wearing shorts. Otherwise they could get to parts where other bees couldn't reach. And you wouldn't appreciate that, so that's not a very good idea. So by and large, they backed off, to be fair. And so I put the bee suit on, got ready, got all the kit. And then I tried to coax the bees back into the box using a special bee brush. We have a special brush for doing that. You don't use a hard brush, it's a very soft brush. Brush the bees into the box. What you're trying to do is you're trying to catch the queen. If you can get the queen in the box, the rest of the bees will follow. They will just fly into the box, follow the queen, or march in, follow the queen. And try as I might, the queen wasn't there. She was somewhere inside the car. She was somewhere between the boot and the frame of the car. There's the gap there between the two. They weren't actually in the car space, but they were somewhere caught between the two. So the queen was obviously in there somewhere. Anyway, the gentleman and lady that owned the car turned up eventually and said, we would like to go home now. And I said, well, it's up to you, but you've got an awful lot of bees on the back of your car. But despite that, they decided to go. I already had quite a lot of bees in the box. I thought, well, maybe we've got the queen, we hope. So they went home with rather a lot of bees on the back of the car. I took the bees home, put them in a hive. Next morning, I had a phone call to say that the bees were still on the back of the car and could I please come and help them remove them. So I went to their home. I got the gentleman to open the boot of the car remotely, I hasten to add. And lo and behold, the inside of the car between the boot door and the frame was solid with bees. So I thought, well, what can I do? I just went for the densest clump of bees, brushed them all into the box, hoping the queen was there, and luckily she was. I left the box there with the entrance open, and by the time I came back, most of the bees had flown into the box. Took them home, hived them up, and that colony is now a good, solid queen-laying colony and doing very well. But as a result of that, I had a phone call then from the BBC, and we ended up on BBC 5 Live doing an interview. So I did that, and then the next day I got a phone call from a couple of radio stations in the United States of America, plus the national Australian radio station, so I did some interviews for them as well. So for some reason it kind of went viral for a while.
The story comes from Haverfordwest of West Wales, which is the most British sounding place I've ever.
And then she stopped to go shopping in Haverfordwest in West Wales, and that is when a swarm of perhaps 20,000 bees came.
And it surprised me because swarming bees are quite a normal thing all around the world. In Pembrokeshire this summer we've had dozens of them. And we've had dozens of phone calls from people who've had swarms, and of course we get this all around the world. So why it should suddenly be of great international interest, I'm not quite sure. But for a brief while, Haverfordwest was on the map.
Right, first thing